present to you the podcast Wounded Hearts, Wounded Churches. We discuss a range of topics that include addictions, religious abuse, and this live platform offers meaningful questions and answers, a counseling continuum, and valuable feedback from professionals and others who have been through the process and are healed, forgiven, and reconciled. If they can achieve this, so can you. This program can be heard on iHeart, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Pandora, Apple Podcasts, and others. Make no mistake, this podcast sustains and implements three things: healing, forgiveness, and reconciliation within the Church of God. Thanks for listening.
Good day, friends. Good to have you here tonight for the podcast, Wounded Hearts, Wounded Churches. Good to see you. And again, we are glad you are here tonight for this podcast. We offer different topics, a counseling continuum, and of course, we have a live call-in apparatus. And you can text in that number, 1-866-538-3664. Again, you can text in tonight, live podcast, 1-866-538-3664. We want to thank those who chime in each week. Glad to have you here. God has blessed us, friends, to have an excellent group that works with us here. We have our director, Tania McLeod. She's a mom of four. She's a homeschooler. And of course, she is founder of the Arise magazine. We have Pastor Micky Mullins. He's been preaching for 40 plus years, Church of God. He's on Facebook, YouTube, etc. And he has a real burden for unity of God's people. Also, we have Stella Cabin, 92 years old, been saved 62 years. Her dad was a minister. Of course, she has a nephew that's a pastor, nephew that's a minister, and her son was a pastor for years. So she's a part of this program. And also, I'm Prince, licensed counselor, founder of Antioch Youth Center, retired. So again, we're glad you're here tonight. A lot to discuss. We're glad to be here with you. But again, this discussions that we have, friends, they can be stimulating, but we do need to have listener discretion. Do we agree all the time? No, we don't, but we can still love and disagree. That's our main focus here. So we want you to be a part of this activity. We're able to, again, you can call in. That number is 1-866-538-3664. You can call us also, too. That number to call in is 478-283-9093, 478-283-9093. You can also email us at Wounded Hearts. That email address is reeeechone@aol.com. So join us and be ministers of reconciliation. I want to thank you, friends who come to the podcast each week. We are here for you. I want you to encourage you. Let you know we are here for you. If you feel neglected, maybe you've been suffering from church hurt, we are here for you. And of course, you can always call in and we can pray for you and work with you in those areas. We can be heard on Amazon Music, Mumbler, Podium, Soundwise, Podpal, Truth Social, and many others. Facebook, and of course, Alexa also too. But tonight, I have a lot to unpack, friends. Introducing here our guest, Pastor Mullins from, I think, Stewartville, Alabama. Husband, father, grandfather, Church of God pastor for years and years. He's been preaching for over 40 years, I would imagine, pretty near that time. He's on YouTube, Facebook. In fact, I saw him preaching recently. His message was Healing the Land. A good message I heard him preaching. And he has a heart for forgiveness and the unity of God's people. Brother Mullins, glad you're here tonight. Want to give you a hand. Glad to have you be a part tonight. Well, we have a lot to unpack, and time's working against us as usual. Brother Mullins, about 7 years ago, a friend of mine came to me. He was heartbroken, disturbed, and mentioned this idea about beards. And some people, Church of God, that was an issue of fellowship. Tell us more about that, what you've experienced in the fire of beards.
Okay, that particular issue, I was pretty well acquainted with. I came in kind of at the tail end of it, so to speak, and so the group that I was trying to work with was actually going through at that particular time a division, and beards was one of the things. And but what they did is a little bit more intense than that.
Sure.
Beards definitely was an issue, and we can talk about that. But they had a what they called a list of 8 things, and
Ah,
uh, and so they had these 8 points that had become points of contention and a test of fellowship. So there again, beards was one of them, but there were 7 others that went along with it. And but if we go back in history, I believe it was H.M. Riggle made the statement that creeds were never meant to unite men, but to divide them.
wow.
So,
Wow.
um, so there was a traditional uh, teaching against beards
Hmm.
with many. I don't know about all, but with many. And I actually came up in a group that was very much that way. And actually, that was my position. My position at that time was anti-beard, and
Hmm.
I'd even preached against it, just kind of carrying out the tradition.
Right.
But then, as we come face to face with it, I began to realize, wait a minute, this is not sound. It's not founded, and it's just not a position that I can continue to hold.
Sure.
So I personally and publicly retracted and backed up and gave explanation to our congregation here, and so uh, we began to realize the inconsistencies that, and some of the inconsistency of this beard thing was, um, excuse me, that you could have a mustache but you couldn't have a beard. And I even went into a minister's meeting one time, thereafter, God began dealing with me about this. And I walked in and I said, brother, you know what my preference is. My preference was clean shaven. And I said, but how can I fellowship this brother with a mustache? And then I tell this brother who has facial hair on his cheeks that I can't fellowship him. This is not sound. And so I didn't get as you might understand, I didn't get a real good answer.
Right.
But that was kind of the beginning of me taking a different position on it.
Do you have that list handy? Do you want to read some of us on the list?
I do, sure.
Okay.
Now I don't know that this is the sequence of it, um, but so uh, and in fact I think beards was listed as number 8,
Okay.
but on this particular list the sequence is showing it as number 1. But I
Mhm.
was told it was the least thing.
Okay.
But regardless of the sequence, here are the points. Beards, no facial hair allowed on men. Women not allowed to trim or cut hair. Um, Number 3, women not allowed to work outside of the home. Number 4, and again, I don't know the sequence. Children and adults not allowed to play sports. That was to say organized sports.
Yeah. Hmm.
And number 5 was shorts are not acceptable. Um, Number 6 was ecumenical conduct or spirit is forbidden. And all those things we can, if you want, we can talk about. Number 7 was no movies of any category or genre. Number 8, TV not allowed in home. Now, from a traditional standpoint, that sounded pretty strong to me at that time. But as time went on, I began to realize uh, and understand a lot of that was exaggerated. Was the problem that much of the problem that I saw with it. It went beyond what it sounded like, and it wasn't altogether what it sounded like.
Brother Mullins, I tried to call around and find out about the beard. I made a couple of phone calls, but wasn't able to get a good response. But I know one preacher. Do we have those pages that I sent in, page number 3? We can put that up or not. But it
Sure.
talks about this preacher, well, this public, Brother Richie, he used Isaiah 7:20 on page 3. And it says, of course, that God will shave the beard. And he used Isaiah 7:20 to support that. And when he preached that, people just start rejoicing in support of having, the beard. Christ's going to cut the beard off of us. Uh, Isaiah 7:20.
I'm not
And
sure if I
they
have the
also
right
use
one. Sorry about that. Just want to make sure I don't have it numbered. Is this the correct form? Just want to be sure.
that
Is it
is
different? This is okay.
that's the one,
Okay.
Isaiah 7:20. And another one they used, Brother Mullins, was page number 2, Leviticus 14:8, page number 2. And here it's talking about the shaving the beard, but it's talking about the lepers. You know, the lepers
Mm.
are to shave the beard. And another issue they were talking about, it was wrong because of the hippie movement. The
Right.
beard was a connotation. Had you heard that before about the hippie movement and the
Yes,
beard?
that was mainly the one that we'd heard.
Right. But they also wore mini dresses, the girls. So,
Mhm.
I mean, it has to be, measured out uh,
Right.
and worked through. And you also mentioned mustaches. Now, a mustache defined is hair on the upper lip,
Hmm.
beards on the cheek, and the sideburns. Now, I'm just questioning if I can have a mustache but not a beard, how do I reconcile that? I'm wondering. How is that? What do you, what's your
I,
idea on
I
that?
I
Well, I do
I
have a
don't believe
comment.
that we can.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
It's from None. It was said, all those things sound like things the Church of God should stand against. I agree that the beard is not that big of a deal.
Okay. Thank you for that. And again, Brother Mullins, the mustache, I can have that, but I can't have the facial hair. Is
Hmm.
that what is that the
That
position?
that was basically the gist of it, and of course, my question was, well, how do you explain that to someone? Uh, why is it okay for you to have hair on your upper lip, but you can't have it on your lower lip, or you can't have it on your chin or your cheeks? So to me, it was just very petty, and and even if let's say back in the 50s and 60s, if they uh, if they felt it was best not to do that for the time, um, but I don't see where it should have ever become an eternal standard.
Sure. Brother Mullins, I want your opinion on this. When I was in college, there were two young ladies there, and they both had facial hair on their face, and so I'm just wondering how. But but women can't cut their hair. I understand that, but if it's on their face, what do they do?
Interesting.
Well, uh,
And friends, for those that are listening, we're not making light of it, but if you're going to have a standard, it's got to be biblically based for all time. It just can't be for just one moment and not for the next. Now, these two women, they were sweet girls in college, but they had facial hair. So we say they can't cut their hair. Okay, well, what do they do? Just have a full beard? You know,
well,
and
it's like this: do they shave their legs and do they shave their underarms? I mean,
yeah. So
So
where do you draw the line?
some
Yeah,
things
I
come
agree.
with neatness and cleanliness.
It's true. Brother Moses, also, I did a brief study. Ezekiel had a beard. D.S. Warner had a beard.
Right,
Nehemiah had a beard. Aaron had a beard.
right.
David's men had a beard. David
Hmm.
himself had a beard.
Hmm.
Amasa had a beard. In fact, I had a beard when I was first saved for the first 2 years. I had a beard. Never shaved like always had a beard. So
Mhm.
how would they? And then tonight, if you're a beard person, we just want to find these things out. How can you justify those who wore the beards? Please text in 1-866-538-3664. There's no open program here. This is your program, so
Mhm.
let us know about David, about Aaron, Nehemiah, brother Mullins. What do you think about that?
I do
Well,
have one
to
comment.
add to,
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry. I
Okay.
just wanted,
Mm.
none mentioned, can women not shave legs or armpits?
Well, brother, okay, we'll take that question first. Brother Murray, Brother Mullins, the group that you were in, can they do that?
yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if 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 a woman, let's say she has hairy legs, quote unquote, if she can shave her legs and not, and if she has facial hair, she can't or can, I don't know. That could be confusing, I think. Brother, what do you think?
To
That could be
me,
confusing.
to me, brother, that's just a no-brainer, really, because it's not the norm. To begin with, it's not the norm. It's it's normal for facial hair to grow on a man, but it's not normal for facial hair to grow on a woman. So I think they just would have to address that absolutely. Um, be modest and clean, and so yeah, absolutely, it's no problem at all. Now I do know, and I have heard of some groups that do not believe in women shaving their legs, but we don't. I certainly don't take that position whatsoever
Wow.
uh, at all. But to add to your list, also we find that Jesus had a beard,
He
and
did. He did.
he said, "I gave my cheeks to those that pluck the hairs from my cheeks." So, do we take a higher standard than Christ? He was our example in all things. Okay, so and that was one of the things that really began to get my attention. I thought, um, I began to consider some of the things like you're saying. I began to look at the some of the six seal brethren, like Warner and different ones, many of them. Uh, and I thought, now if they were alive today, let's just say we know that's not possible, but
Sure.
suppose that it was, and they walked in. I said one night, I said, the position that we've held down through the years, we'd have to tell them to go shave before they preach. So
Wow.
uh, I began to realize, hey, this is just not right. And you know, I personally don't have a beard and don't necessarily want one, but that's my personal preference. But I think I don't think we need to try to hold a standard higher than Christ.
No. Well, I'm going to throw you a curveball here that I'm really burdened about, and you are too, listeners also. Why is it so hard to have unity? Why is it so hard to have unity of this in the home, in the church? Why is it so hard to do that?
Well, that's a great question, and everybody would point a finger at one another, but I think again, it's got to start with having the right spirit and attitude. And when our tradition trumps a right spirit and attitude, we cannot have unity. So I believe unity has got to come from moving away with some of the traditional attitudes. And Jesus said, "You have made for doctrine the commandments of men." And some of these things have not been doctrine, and until we can let some of those go, people are going to just continue to kind of sit there like with a bulldog grip on their position. That's just like the beard thing that we're, and I'm glad to hear that some are possibly moving away from that. I've heard some of late, and I'm glad for that. But that's only one thing. There's Jesus said many other such like things you
Oh
do.
my.
So I believe if we could sit down and reevaluate some of the things that we've divided over, uh, revisit these things with the right attitude, not and to realize, hey, anybody can be wrong. You
Sure.
know what I mean? Maybe the position that we held was wrong. Um, and my question is, why is that so hard for people to do that? And
Brother,
then
Brother, let me chap in. That's true. I mean, if your position is biblical, we can discuss it, can't we?
Exactly.
I mean, if it's
Absolutely.
biblical and you've experienced it
Hmm.
and you know it to be true, I can
Yeah,
discuss any doctrine. Not a problem with me at all. Whatever that's
exactly.
it's fine. I have no problem with
Ab-
that. I
Absolutely.
have no
I
problem.
do have some
Absolutely.
comments. I'm going to jump in here. I have some comments coming
Yes,
in.
ma'am. Go
Denise
right ahead.
Denise Rawls says beards are okay, but not long. None said in the church it comes down to doctrine. This person also said Christ taught one doctrine and we must uphold it.
True. Brother Mullins, there are some people tonight who have been wounded by, let's face it, church issues. And you have a burden for that. I know you do. Our director does also, our staff people. Any advice to them who are at home and who are hurting? What should they do?
Well, obviously, the first thing they should do is just continue to hold on to God and to allow Christ to heal their broken heart, and to realize that they're not alone. Uh, you know, um, when the prophet Elijah felt like he was all alone and he didn't want to go on, what God reminded him of was, "You're not alone. There's 7,000 more that just like you that have not bowed their knee to Baal." So you know, I think that brings hope, because sometimes we feel like there's the enemy can come in with so much unbelief because of so much of what we've saw.
Sure, sure.
But I do believe it's a time of awakening. I believe that I'm not clear on it, but the Revelation teaches us there's going to be another earthquake, and whether we want to acknowledge that or not, it's in there. And so I believe God's awakening people. I believe America's being awakened. I believe the church is being awakened for those that desire to be. So
Wow.
so I see hope. I see courage, and I think good things are on the way. Brighter days are sweetly dawning, as the old
Yeah.
song said.
Well, that's why we're here. We're here for you tonight. That's why we come together each week to let you know you're not by yourself, that God loves you. We do too. Want to reach out to you, those who've been hurt and wounded. But I want to thank you tonight for this input. Been very important. To our director, thank you. For those who chimed in, thank you so much. May the Lord bless you. Have a good night tonight. May the Lord bless you.
Amen.